the first ever episode of the pod, Chris ended the episode. I think it was with Ian. And Chris ended the episode. You guys were saying, like, how should we sign off? And you just said, be gone from the pod.
Yeah.
And I am obsessed with this. And every time I listen to a podcast and they end it with anything besides be gone from the pod, I get really upset about it. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to insist that we end this by
it's become a catchphrase in this household. Be gone from the pod.
Welcome, everybody, to a very, very, very special edition of the Samwise Ibrahimski podcast. And we have absolutely the very best special guests. First off, Samwise is here, as always. Samwise, how are you?
I'm very good, Chris. It's very good to hear your voice. How are you?
I'm good. And our very special guests are our beloveds. Lauren's here, my wife of many, many years. But at this point, welcome,
15,
Lauren.
almost 16.
So we've been working on the idea for this pod for a very, very long time. And what the idea was that we were going to bring all four of us together and we all have the opportunity to ask each other questions. Partially, the idea from this came because I just so appreciate seeing the two of you together and seeing how much you obviously appreciate one another and really enjoy one another. Like we were just watching this, what was it? Bound for Nowhere. It's this great, what do you call it? It's a video, it's a YouTube series. And this couple like travel the world together and especially the country. And they're outdoors folks and they're, in this beautiful camper anyway, but they're, filming each other. And you can just tell so clearly from the way that they photograph each other and the way that they film each other that they really love each other quite a bit. So that's kind of the idea of this. And that makes me think of the two of you and the way that both when you speak about each other, but then also when you are together.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. And also the same thing with, us to a different degree, but we had our, the last 10 years almost working together all the time, every Sunday, worshiping together, but also serving the last church together. And it was, just a real joy in building all of this.
It was very sweet.
Family and all these folks. So anyway, all sorts of good love for here. So yeah, anybody can just launch in with a question.
I mean, my question immediately is, what was your experience actually being co-workers? And not just any co-workers, but co-ministers. Like, what was that like? And do you miss it?
I miss it a lot. And there are benefits there are benefits to the fact that we have moved on from working together. Both things are really true. So we complement each other. I think I'm more of an introvert. Chris is more of an extrovert. And we gravitate to different parts of ministry. So we're very different personalities, but we're pointed in a very similar direction when it comes to Unitarian Universalism. And so there's something really rich in that. Like we both really believe in something that is relevant and vibrant and alive, and we have a similar sense of worship, except that we're so different. And so I just love that the way that our ministry, our take on ministry is different and similar. Also, it was really helpful in marriage to have to every week have what we called the hour of power, when we sat down and worked on our schedules and our plans and talked through the week and talked through who was going to do what. And we still do that once a week. We have a sit down kind of meeting and just talk about life. And anyway, I also just really love watching Chris as a minister. What's nice about not being ministers together is that I think when you have roles in a relationship, it's possible to sort of over depend on another person to be in that role.
Yeah.
So, I could over depend on you being the Energizer Bunny,
right,
and you could over depend on me being
organized and administratively, wise. So I will sneak in. So I think to me, the thing that was so fun for so many years working together was that, we pushed each other, I think, like Lauren's a really great preacher. And so when she would preach a really great sermon, I would work even harder in like a sweet samurai, mutually competitive way, because I was like, all right, okay, we'll see next time. And so we worked really closely. And so worship was very collaborative, where, like it is with our team now. But until John came, I was really doing the bulk of the preaching. And so now having John there, it's like a little taste of that. But, he's just starting out, and Lauren was already really, really good. And we sort of developed a homiletic style together. Much as we're very different, I think we had a flavor to worship that we really worked on. And that Hour of Power piece, which is a just fantastic relationship hack, I think, for everyone. That's what I tell all the folks when I'm working with people who are getting married, is like, there's just this dedicated time where, we knew we had this opportunity. So if there was something, that I knew I wanted to talk about, but didn't kind of feel like getting into, I knew that there was this opportunity coming up. And especially working together, it meant that we weren't always talking about work, and we had a lot of discipline about where we would talk about work and where we wouldn't talk about work. So on some level, it was an easier time to be bounded about, our love and our family and our relationship, because it was so clear that we didn't want to be just talking about work all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like she was saying at the end, it's been an opportunity, since we are now both kind of really stepping up into larger roles in our two jobs now, her with being the Fancy Pants development person at the UUA, and doing a great job with that, like really bringing a lot of, we've learned a lot in the last, 17 years of ministry, and really being able to bring all of that together in these two roles is also really sweet. So being able, which, not that we weren't able to do that in the last one, but, that was our first senior minister role. And much as we were doing it together, we were still figuring out how to do it and still really learning. So it was great. It was really great.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And we had little kids too. So we, the kids were very small, and that was part of the intention to working together, is we were both part-time. And so we had more time to be around with the kids. And we had a very flexible schedule. Much as we were working a lot, we worked in ways that really prioritized time with the kids, which now, we're doing a lot more than we were, certainly. So that was also very sweet to be able to be around for them.
I guess, so a lot of our listeners know all about you and me, Chris. They don't know so much about Lauren, and they don't know so much about Jesse. So maybe we could focus on you two guys just for a little bit. So Lauren, could you tell us a little bit about, how did you actually get here? Like, were you born UU? Were you raised UU? Or did you find your way to UU? And why did you choose the UU ministry?
All of the above, which doesn't make sense, but I'll tell you the very shortest version of it. I came to Unitarian Universalism as an adult, and I'm a fifth generation Unitarian Universalist. Both things. So when I was in my 20s, I was looking for a church, really. And my mother said, "You'd like the Unitarians, they're liberal." And she grew up in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, Fallen Church in East Lexington. My great-great-grandfather was a member of the First Parish in Cambridge. So I'm not just a fifth generation Unitarian Universalist. I'm a fifth generation Black Unitarian Universalist, which is,
Like not unicorn,
which is a bit of a unicorn.
Yeah.
But, so both things. But I went on one Sunday. I was like, I put on a dress and I got into my beater pickup truck and I drove to Arlington Street Church, and there was a guest minister there, and she was preaching a sermon. I don't know who she was, but she preached a sermon that used, but I guess it was Joan Osborne's song, "What If God Was One of Us," which I always want to change to the subjunctive, but whatever.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
But, and I just, never stopped going, and then went to seminary, and became a minister. And
we met at that church. Too.
We met at that church. Yeah. So we met at Arlington Street Church in the meditation group. And so I entered ministry. My first year of marriage and ministry and motherhood were all the same year, which was 2007, 2008, that sort of church year.
And she moved across the country she was already here in Massachusetts, and then she moved back to the Bay Area where I was living.
Yeah. So that's us. That's it. And so
Scorpio.
After South Church, it just became clear in a way that it's easier not to be a two parish minister family. I love parish ministry. So this is a way that I get to continue to be a minister, and I love that. I value that, and so it just works out better for our family. I've heard so much of my own voice, and I would love to hear
you just have to say. And then plus one of the great gifts that you bring to your work at the UA too is she's really good at sort of shaping systems and being able to diagnose parts of systems that are under functioning or stuck. And so, in just, 4 years, you've brought a lot of clarity of roles and structure and systems. And so you sort of like wrestling they oil up pigs, right? Don't they? Our friends wrestle slippery pigs. Like a lot of times institutional ministry really is that, you're trying to get your hands around something that's been kind of cobbled together over years and sort of not really quite functioning. And that's why a lot of people don't really stick with it, but you're really good at seeing what a thing can be. I mean, myself included, right? Seeing what a thing can be and then slowly helping something become a best version of itself. So anyway, so Jesse, I mean, I'm also just fascinated by like, how did you guys meet? And then was it sort of an immediate thing or was it like sort of slow or
I guess how did we meet? We met at a party, which seems pretty old school.
Old school.
My lab mate was roommates and with Sam and invited me to a housewarming party for one of his new roommates. And I was like, I guess I'll go. I was not that enthusiastic about it. And I showed up and Sam was there.
Yeah.
And super charming, would not surprise anybody.
I was sitting on a beanbag.
He was sitting on this big beanbag. And the most beautiful thing is that like the house he was in, it is like 3 blocks from where we currently live. So it feels like it's like a full circle. Like
we sort of done a homecoming via like Somerville and
Somerville. I lived at Inman Square for a while. Yeah. And I was a little low key dating somebody else at the time. So we were just platonic friends for a week or two. You guys too? Same with you? Uh-oh, disagreement?
More than low key dating somebody.
Well, when we met,
it's the same deal, right? So so for like a couple of months or whatever, it was like, okay, this is platonic, but there's a lot of love interest here.
And then and I was about to break up with my ex, so the timing worked out really perfect. Same, okay. I feel like for the people at home, we're getting a lot of agreements and nods from Chris and Lauren's side.
Right.
And wait, so what kind of scientist are you? And then we'll go back to the other.
Oh man, that sounds like a metaphysical question. Like, what kind of scientist am I? I got my PhD's in computational and systems biology, which is kind of a mouthful. Yeah. And the work I did was synthetic biology, which is, there's a lot of ways to describe it, but I think of like using the tools that life has engineered to make cool new things, which is generic enough, but I love it. Not quite all the way to the Jurassic Park, but like Jurassic Park-y kind of areas. And then the work I do now is I'm a computational biologist, software engineer, and do a lot of looking at huge amounts of DNA sequences with computers.
Wow. I don't know. We never have mentioned this. My dad was a biologist.
No way.
Before he became a minister, he was a biology professor at BU for like 28 years or something.
Wow, that's so cool. What kind of biology did he do?
He would be 98 now. So this was a long time ago that he went through and did his PhD. And it was on cell division. I don't even know.
Mitosis or meiosis? Never mind.
I know a lot about very specific things. And I think as I've doubled down on very specific bits of wisdom, I've really let everything else sort of. My 15-year-old is taking physics and he's like, already, I don't even understand. You understand more of it. Lauren does. But I'm just like, whew, like I thought this day was going to come later, but I'm pretty sure you know more math than I do now.
Oh, that's funny.
And so were you, because you were also, did you tell like right away that you were working in a church? Because you were already working for the church, right?
Oh yeah, I was, right. Oh wait, but this is so this is in summer of 2018. Actually, I've just started working at First Church.
I think he's been working at First Church the whole time. I've never.
Yeah, it was just around the time I was starting at First Church, actually.
Was that like meeting a person from another planet, or were you guys churchy already, or were you like, what are you doing in a church? Because it's not often that you meet, peers who are working in church.
Well, you sang in choirs, right?
I did, yeah. So I was a little baby Episcopalian choir singer.
It's officially out. We officially now know you can sing.
No.
She's a beautiful singer.
Not literally false.
Jessie's got an amazing voice.
Inaccurate now.
Yeah, that's true. She's
not
wonderful
true at all. And then I stopped going. So my mom's a churchgoer, and she goes to Episcopalian church. I was going to say religiously, but I guess that's like a dump, like every week. Her mom and I have long conversations about like ushering and how to organize ushers. And like the stresses of church committees and the stresses of like the annual stewardship drive, and we connect on a lot of levels. My mom got to be in charge. She got to be head usher for the Christmas Eve service, and that was like really like a good win for her.
I just found out within the last 2 weeks. Did you ever usher at Arlington Street Church for Christmas?
Yeah.
So did you know there was a party in the bell tower?
No.
Yeah. See, nobody ever told me either. Apparently, there's this church that we went to.
Podcast.
Yeah, you can put it in the podcast. I don't care about it.
How people at the party in the bell tower. Anyway.
Leave it in.
All right, sure.
All sorts of secrets. Yeah, but no, seriously. So since that's not going to be in there,
We're going to believe that? Out of time, though.
There was a party in the bell tower.
Chat.
I worked so many Christmas Eves as an usher in this team. Nobody told me about no party in the bell tower.
No.
I was just sitting down there. I mean, I guess I was a kid at the time. But
exclusive club.
I know. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be pretty upset if I didn't know.
All right. So, bringing it back. I was also wondering what is like one thing for all four of us, like among the things that you appreciate about the other person most.
No.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you are fundamentally a generous human and, appreciate my gifts and hold my quirks and oddities lightly. Like you even at points when I was like really nervous about my quirks and oddities.
Yeah.
You were fundamentally, able to receive me as a whole human being and see me for the person I am and could be. And I value that. Because I have significant quirks and oddities. So, yeah. And then also, I just also genuinely appreciate how much you make me laugh.
Mm.
This is one of my stories about being in high school. I was in high school, and one day something happened in Mr. Thomas's class, and it was alphabetical seating. I was sitting right in front of Lisa Smith, and I just started laughing. I was laughing so hard I was crying. And she just stopped and she said, "I've never heard you laugh." And so like just getting to the place of like lots of just laughter in my life is just lovely.
Oh,
that's beautiful.
That's great.
What about you, Jessie?
About Sam?
Yeah.
A million, billion, trillion things.
Aww.
Definitely his kindness is wonderful. He's crazy, crazy, crazy smart.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing and comes through with so many things. And you stole it, but making me laugh is amazing. You're so funny. and it's just like every day is a joy, honestly. Because of all the great things about nice. The salmon.
The salmon. That's what she calls me. So she calls me the salmon.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm a bear. My family nickname is Jessie Bear. And so then I looked in the river, found me a salmon.
Right.
So, and then when I'm a panda bear, he's my Sambu.
Oh,
yeah. It works on a lot of levels.
It works on a lot of levels.
Very nice. What about you, Sam?
What I really appreciate about Jessie, I think more than anything else, is her warm-heartedness So she has a well of kindness and warm-heartedness and love towards other people. She has a well of compassion and empathy for people, particularly people who are in a bad way. And that's something that I always recognize, and yeah, that's something very beautiful about Jessie. And also, we laugh a lot together, but that's sort of been taken away because that was your thing. Yeah.
A common.
Oh, I don't mean that it's been taken away that we don't laugh together. I mean, that's
There's a
we still have that
theme of
oh wait, Chris, shall I say what I appreciate about you?
No.
Yeah, I think
I'll leave that to wage negotiation.
I should say what I appreciate, which I think I was married once before, and so I was divorced. And in the wake of my divorce, especially, I was, really wondering and asking what was most important. And over again, when we got together again, I was like so clear that I trusted you more than I've ever, trusted anybody in my entire life. And and that's only deepened as we've had kids and life has grown more complex. But, I think it's that. I mean, there's so many other things too, but especially that. It's always been from the very, for these last 16 years anyway. And I'm pretty, when we have, hard moments, especially, and we're in the midst of, conflicts and fights and things, and I'm pretty much in the back of my mind kind of assume that she's right. Because so far she really mostly has been.
Oh,
but I like to say the day's coming.
Sometimes
keep up the hope, Chris. Someday
I'll be there.
I'm usually right about things that in your heart are right already, but you just needed somebody outside of you to say. Those are the things I tend to be right about.
Next question.
I think we should do. I think we did big things, but maybe can we do little? Is there any little or secret skills? And I have this question for Lauren, but I'll start with my secret skill for Sam that I think is underappreciated. That's just a very minor thing. He is amazing at impressions.
Really?
Do impressions of people, and then a little
do it.
No, that's the thing. It's it's a precious thing. So he can do so many good impressions, but he will only do it once a month, and then when you hear it, you're like, it's like this gift. So keep an ear out for when he does an impression.
Once a month.
And he's really, if it were me, if I had the skill that he had, it would be every day I'd be like, this is Robert De Niro or whatever. But he's very modest about it. So you have to keep an ear out for the little impressions, and I love it. And that's my secret skill that I noticed.
The funny thing about impressions is that for a lot of people, and I'm one of them, and Jessie's another, is that it's very hard to do them on command,
True.
right? So Jessie has a really good English accent.
No.
But if I ask her to do it now,
no.
she won't do it. But it's really good.
I'll do tuppence. Done.
No, that's not it. No. You got to do an impression of an English grandmother, right?
Hello, governor.
That's not it. No, that's the parody version anyway. So that's a skill.
Secret talent. How about you? How about you guys? Do you have any secret talents?
Yeah.
Or little things that you admire?
She has a gift for losing.
For what?
Losing things. I also have a gift for finding things and getting good parking spots.
Getting good parking
100%.
spots. That's a good one.
That's her superpower. It's weird and it's a little frustrating. So she also used to. No, I mean, it's great when she does it, but it's frustrating when you're driving and not finding one. And she's like, "Oh, there was one." She used to live in Cambridge for a really long time, which I think is probably when it was finely tuned. And grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, where parking's just magical. But it really is weird. It really is weird. She'll just find, and super close to where you're going. It's crazy. And so if we usually have her drive, if we're going out to dinner or something in Somerville or Cambridge, we'll have her drive and she'll find some. And every time I'm get a little bit
A little bit
mad. Yeah, that really is a superpower. It's very weird.
I can't think of like
Anything I do well.
There's tons of things you do well. Your sweetest habit is like every morning he gets up and goes around to all of our rooms and takes our breakfast order, and then like short order cooks breakfast for all of us.
Oh, that's lovely.
So everybody has something different, and he likes to plate.
Change it just a little bit. Yeah. Some of them, or they'll go in waves. So like Jack is in a bacon, egg, and cheese on a sesame bagel phase, but that'll change, and Ben changes almost every day. Aaliyah, goes through phases, but
Chris, one of my favorite skills that you have and that I'm always kind of overawed by is your storytelling, right? You're really, really, really good at it. And I can't do it. I don't have that talent for storytelling. I can't do it. But it just kind of spontaneously bursts out of you. It's wonderful.
It began during our time, especially. Well, I mean, it started in the Berkeley Church when I was the minister of religious education there. And so we had a team of 3 ministers, the other 2 co-ministers like we had been. And we all preached. They preached a little bit more than I did. So almost every Sunday for 7 years, I would come up with original stories, and they, in the beginning, I was looking for them. They would say, "Oh, this Sunday is going to be on community and the importance of," and it's hard to find stories for church stuff because, especially back then, we didn't have a lot of the online resources that we have now. So you're looking up actual picture books and you're going to the it was just took too long. And it didn't exactly fit. So then I just started making them up. And then slowly over the years got better at making them up so that the people would send me, the ministers I worked with would send me a couple of phrases, couple images, and the general idea. And then I would just, come up with something. And then in the years that we worked together.
Softened over the years. They used to be a little crazier.
Yeah, it was. And my delivery, I've softened and grown. There's some YouTube videos.
Oh, wow.
Google, Chris. Yeah, if you Google, there's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a different time, I was 26 when I started. You know what I mean? And let's just say I've only been sober for 16 years. So, I had a lot of different kind of energy when I was a younger person. It's mostly that I'm like, telling the story super fast. And I'm like, and a lot of them were almost all kind of apocalyptic.
Yes, I know. And you would get that feedback and you'd be like, what are you talking about?
I wasn't so good at
Stop telling me that.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So I've softened and I've wizened. But anyway, so then when we were in Portsmouth together, I would almost always make up the stories, and then she would tell half of them because whoever was preaching, the other told the stories. And she's also a really good storyteller, very different vibe, but really good. And so I would make up the stories and often leave them as voice memos.
And then I'd memorize them.
She'd memorize them. We're like driving to the church. It was great.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that part was really fun because then she would write her sermon and then I would have heard it. And so then I would pick a couple pieces from, we do that now somewhat, but especially then it was really like, if you were really listening, you could hear a couple images from the sermon, and then the sermon would be, call back to bits that you heard 20 minutes before in the story. It was really cool.
It made the service really tight.
Yeah, it was good.
That was fun.
Wait, was that everything? Oh no, Sam, you said something. Oh, was it her impressions too? You have another one?
I have a theological question.
Bring it.
We were together in a UU theology class or kind of workshop. It was like broad brush about Unitarian Universalist theology, and you were present. There were so many people there because there's so much hunger for more clarity about UU theology.
Yeah.
We wrote a bunch of theological words on all these pieces of paper around the room, like, grace and salvation and sin and I remember you brought up the word solace in this beautiful way. It was like you asked where where does that happen in Unitarian Universalism? I just always remember that question. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know. I remember your talk very well, and I remember the discussion afterwards, and I do actually remember asking that question. I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that has always stuck with me, and so I think so much about where Unitarian Universalism is robust theologically and where it's sort of thinner, and sort of how we navigate that. So I'm just curious about your respective thoughts and feelings about that. You know what I mean by thinner and robust.
Yeah.
You know, where we sort of struggle to be what we need to be theologically to meet people in the experiences they have, you know, and where we do that really successfully. And so that's a big question, but that's
no, it's good. And I would say also for you, especially now in your role in the UUA, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts, both as a minister, but also as part of the mothership.
You know, I left that thinking, I want to talk theology with Sam again. So here we are. Now I get this chance 2 years later.
Yeah. So something that I think about is finding solace the same thing as finding what's permanent amidst what's transient. I think possibly for a lot of people, they're not connected. For a lot of people, they are connected. And for me, they are. But my difficulty is trying to figure out what is permanent, right? Whether it's permanence, of course, in terms of a permanent certainty about who I am, why I'm here, where I'm going, what path I'm on, right? Or whether it's permanence in some transcendent sense, whether it's permanence about, you know, that there's a destination I'm headed to after death and that it's a good place, or that somebody who transcends time and change is looking out for me and that's true all the time, right? Now, I don't hold any certainties about those questions, but when I am somebody who needs solace. I'm somebody who needs reassurance that it's going to be okay and that all is not in vain. And I'm not quite sure where to find that. I just have a sense of what that would feel like, and it's the feeling is of touching something permanent, right? And I think that in UU, something that I wonder if we do quite a lot is to emphasize change and to emphasize the moment at the expense of the permanent, right? We quite properly emphasize, for example, you know, continuing revelation, but I wonder if the emphasis on the permanent, the unchanging, sometimes can get lost. And I guess so. My question then for you too: where do you find that permanence within UU theology, or in your own in your own lives and your own theology?
That's so beautiful. I just have to say that out loud.
I think so much of, you know, how we've created Unitarian Universalism in these last, you know, last 25 years that I've been, you know, really part of crafting people's experience of Unitarian Universalism. So much is around personal choice and, like you were saying, like ongoing revelation. And I always, and I've preached about this guy, but I always think of, do you remember the young man who came into the back of South Church? You know, we would greet him on the way in, and then he would come in and sit in the back pews just a year, like more. And we saw him really regularly, very sweet. And we, you know, never really came downstairs, never really got to know folks, but was there all the time. A really nice guy. So really long time later, he came and asked to meet with me. And then we sat, and it turned out he had started coming right after he found out he had a brain tumor. And he came religiously and was there in worship every week, you know, as he was contemplating a really high likelihood that he was going to die. This is a young man, you know what I mean? Like his whole world was falling apart. And to your question, you know, like, were we giving him enough food, you know, spiritually to face that? And what was it? Like, that's not a moment you necessarily want to hear, well, you get to pick what's true for you, because like there is something deeply you can, give somebody solace. I think of, my grandfather, who'd so desperately Methodist his entire life and wanted to pray and be held in prayer and wanted to just feel God and feel God swoop in and like make it all right, and I think there's something really beautiful to getting answers in a time where you're questioning really deeply. So I think that's, personally part of that tension between, giving people what's permanent and then giving them, the real gift of authentic exploration and, freedom, which is huge from traditions that would, squelch people's individual truth and would try and squeeze people into boxes. Part of, I think, what's true for me, and certainly, partly true for you too, is a lot of the permanence we found in other religions, like it was in Buddhist practice. It was really in a deepening that we found both through Unitarian Universalism, and I'll speak for myself, but it's where we met. So I know it's also true. And I listened to her preach for like 7 years, but was in practice. And it was not in practice that I was given, 0 to 18 every Sunday in the UU church growing up in our religious education program, which was an incredible program. And there was a lot of world religions and it was a lot of wonderful. And the youth group was really nourishing and nurturing. And it really wasn't until I was, 19 and, on a 10-day long silent meditation retreat that I had the first kind of personal grappling with truth and practice and my own mind and my own heart in a totally different way. And an embodied, touching that kind of permanence that I think you were touching on. So I integrated it through my Unitarian Universalism, and then through the Arlington Street Church and a Buddhist meditation group there really had a framework and a deepening. And it was always woven with my Unitarian Universalism, but it definitely, was from other places for me.
I think that's probably true for me too. That one of the reasons that I struggle with the fact that we have pulled farther and farther from our source traditions. I mean, it doesn't have to be Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism but we talk about scripture as text, as things we have to believe. But in practice, my experience of the religious people in my life is that they're living, they're alive, and that they're this, there's a story and you interact with it and you interact with it again. And it's like an offering in helping you strengthen the practice of living a faithful life, and there's something deeply comforting about that for me, because I look at the things that people in my own life and people in my sort of the heritage of Black history have encountered and navigated, and that there's something so it feels like, well, this held them up. And it's not just belief in X thing and belief in Y thing. When I think about the way my grandmother practiced, my grandmother Smith, who Chris loved, practice her faith is deep, and it helped her survive the death of her young son, my dad, when he was 35 years old. And all kinds of things, right? And I think that's part of the reason that I feel so drawn to Buddhist practice, because it's like, it's hard, but it's not hard for the sake of being hard, and it's not always hard, but it's also sturdy enough that it's can bump up against it. It sort of holds a mirror up to the places where maybe you need to pay a little attention and put in a little work. It's I don't know, it's interactive. And one of the things that has come to me from practice is just, I think maybe a sense of enoughness, that if I'm living my life and I'm pointed in a certain direction and kind of doing my best, that there's an ease, even though I do get stressed about every possible thing. But there's something deeply comforting about that, that I can come to the end of my life and feel like Yeah, my life meant something. I have a sense of how to live a life that has meaning. It may not be fancy meaning, but it's like meaningful and purposeful and loving and good. Anyway, that's a weird answer, but that's
No, it's good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
how is it for you, Jesse, at the edge of all this? I mean, you bridge worlds, right? Unitarian Universalism and the Episcopal Church.
Yes,
I mean,
and I guess I haven't even been to an Episcopal church because I stopped going when I was a kid. So yeah, maybe even further away. So yeah, it's a really, I feel like I'm the stereotype of somebody who doesn't usually think about these big questions. I like, it's not something I engage with, except for, the normal scientist admiring the beauty of life. But I don't even know if I have like the language to talk, like the theological arguments. It's so interesting to be with Sam and hear him talk about it, because it's like all this cool stuff that I just had never really thought about in my life. But yeah, it's really great to hear you guys talk about it. And I'll say, in terms of the stuff you're talking about, I feel like our friend, my first church parishioner friend was Katya, our friend who passed away. And I don't know if this changes anything that you guys are saying, but I feel like it brought her a ton of support. Spiritually, I didn't, I don't really super understand theology so much, but I will say the spiritual side, definitely. But the thing that like won me over to loving First Church was the practical stuff. There was was it the caring committee? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
They did her laundry, and it sounds so minor, but it was like somebody who needed somebody to do their laundry.
Right.
So I don't know. That's kind of in terms of the like support. I was thinking of that young man with who had cancer and who was going to pass away. It's like theologically, not my area to know a ton about, but definitely in terms of those sorts of like having people there who are like a safety net, it was a huge thing for her.
I think what's nice about that is that it embodies something deeply theological about who human beings are, who we are to be in the world, and who we are to be together and for one another and from one another. There's this great, one of my favorite quotes is a Howard Thurman quote, and it's old-fashioned language, but he says, "The only refuge for a man is in another man's heart. Therefore, I must make of my heart a swinging door."
Oh,
and so
that's
you're
beautiful.
saying embodies
That's beautiful.
that,
I hadn't
right?
heard that. That's beautiful. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
That was a good one. I remember you preached on that once, and make my heart a swinging door. It was really good.
I have to say that's very Valentine's. Is this our Valentine's Day episode? Because swinging
Right.
heart is a beautiful Valentine's Day.
My heart a swinging door. We could make an actual Valentine for it on.
But we should say the only refuge for a person is in another person's heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Each of our hearts, swinging doors.
Yeah.
I'm always going to remember that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the perfect place to end it, unless
we can say what is it?
Oh no, we got to say, well, first we'll thank you both for coming.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It was a joy.
Nice to meet you, Jesse.
And it was lovely to meet you, Lauren. Yeah, I've seen you a couple times, but I don't think we ever got a chance to talk. So it was really good to hear.
And when we say, what is it? You should close
You know what it is, Chris.
You know what it is.
You know what it is.
What do you got to say?
Okay. On the count of three. 1, 2,
I don't remember what the
3.
words are. Do you?
Be gone from. Okay, sorry.
Be gone from the pod. Yeah.
It's be gone from the pod.
Be gone from the pod.